Coming to you live from deep within an icy, radioactive wasteland, we are the survivors of the social justice zombie apocalypse. The few, the brave, the bitchy, once more wading into battle against the zombie hordes with Rantzerker number 39. Can a bull become a steer?
Well, of course. You just have to lop his nuts off first.
Yeah.
It's all good.
It's all good. Genital mutilation. What's some genital mutilation between ideological friends?
Oh, even metaphorical, just emasculation, right?
Yeah, it's no big deal.
We're
We're being facetious. But before we begin, I actually want to throw out lob a question to the hordes who are listening to this. I'd like to know, if you are a patron, what motivated you to donate to Honey Badger Radio? And if you're not, what would potentially motivate you to donate to Honey Badger Radio? Just out of, for shits and giggles. And if you can send the answer to topic@badgerpod.com, it would be greatly appreciated. Greatly. So that's something to consider, something to think about.
Okay.
All right, let's do this thing. Let's get stuck right in.
Let's fucking... Okay. Full screen. Here we go. Looks like a hipster douchebag to me. Thrift shop sweater. Problem glasses. Trying to look poor even though he's not. Is that a craft beer hat? Anyhow. All right.
He's just a dude, bro. He's a dude, bro.
I don't think he is, actually. I really don't.
So I feel like there's been a resurgence of the word feminist. Whether it's Katy Perry, Beyonce, Emma Watson, that word is in the pop culture discussion at the moment.
Okay, so like whether it's this multimillionaire woman, this multimillionaire woman, this multimillionaire women, all of whom are famous, can't walk down the street without being recognized, and have immense power to influence public opinion, right? Whichever rich, powerful, famous woman you want to point to, yeah, getting the conversation started about feminism. Right. I just thought that was just, yeah. Very grassroots. All right.
Well, okay, I just want to say something. It's interesting to me that these women, who are basically Goliaths, let's just face it, striding through the lesser people because of their incredible privilege. It's interesting how they all embrace an absolve that allows them to absolve themselves of any kind of privilege.
Well, I mean, not any kind. I mean, they will probably admit that they have privilege, but the most important kind, male privilege, they don't have that. Therefore, they're still oppressed. So, yeah. I just, I'm looking at wealthy white women during the suffragette era. I'm looking at you, Emmeline Pankhurst, right? And I'm looking at all of these very, very well-educated, wealthy women who just spearheaded. I mean, like, Betty Friedan couldn't have written The Feminine Mystique if she didn't have a life of luxury to complain about being bored with, right? So.
And before we continue, just to talk to my question, I saw in the chat, there's a whole bunch of people saying, if I had a better job or if I had more money. It's like, well, that I sympathize with that, and believe me, I understand that. But what the question is really, what I'd like to know is what we can do, because we can't actually give you a job to pay us with, or make you independently wealthy.
It's essentially is there anything that we're doing or we could do that would motivate you when willing and able to contribute, right?
Yeah, just this is sort of like touching base. What is it that would motivate you? What do you feel like you would like us to accomplish? Is there anything that is demotivating you? So it's more of a, don't think of it in terms of what your life situation has to be. Think of it in terms of what we need to accomplish, or what you feel like we're accomplishing, right, but you want more of, or whatever. What would motivate you to become a patron?
Yeah, if you could, what would make you do it? If you could afford it. So.
Yeah. Okay, so and also for all those who are saying like I don't have the money. Why haven't you taken me on my offer to donate in your name? And once again, you can send a message to topic@badgerpod.com. I will donate the total amount of everybody who's requested me to donate. So far, I think that's about 4 people, so I'm at about $20 a month. So, if you want to donate to Honey Badger Radio, take me up on that offer and say, hey, Alison, please donate from your own money to Honey Badger Radio in my name, and I will do so. I'd like to get it up above $20. I mean, it's not all $20 because there's $5 that's going to help a guy who's living off of food stamps, or out of not food stamps actually. He's living out of a food bank, off of food banks in a shelter, and then there's $5 are going to Mankind Initiative, but there's $20 going to Honey Badger Radio. I'd like to get that up a bit more. So send me a message. Say, Alison, donate my name. Do it. Put your money where your mouth is, woman. Okay, Karen.
Moving on. Moving on.
Yeah, moving on.
Okay, banana.
The question I'm wondering is, can a man be a feminist? And if so, are we even welcome?
Okay, that second question, that's the one that you should really be wondering about. Can a man be a feminist? Well, I suppose anybody can do something really stupid, right? But would you even be wanted there? That's a little questionable, depending on, I guess, who you ask. And why would you want to go somewhere where you would have to ask the question, am I welcome here? So, all right, moving on.
Oh,
Decided to mental streets of Los Angeles. One question: do you consider yourself a feminist?
I don't consider myself a feminist because I'm masculine.
Okay, so
that's a good point.
It's because I'm masculine, and they'll make me like freaking get my knickers knacked, right? Like on top of that, like I noticed a pattern because I haven't watched this whole video. I just noticed watched the first little bit that I included in the ad, and a lot of these people that they're asking, I mean, like, somebody was asking what's the relevance that they're black, and it's not so much that they're black, right? It's like you got this guy back here, right? He's wearing I think they call those beanies, not toques, in the US, right? And he's muscular and all of that, and he's got his shades on, and he's sort of like, no, because I'm masculine, right? This guy's got toxic masculinity oozing out of every pore. He probably gets laid like crazy, right? And then you got this next guy who's wearing like the freaking shirt, the whatever the fuck that movie was called. What was that movie called? Why can I not remember that? Right? But I mean, he's these are not guys that you're gonna find working as a legal assistant, working their way up in the firm. These are guys who happen to be black, but who are also just regular freaking dudes who work regular jobs, right? These are not the elites. These are not the effete. They are not the educated. They are just living their lives, right? And it just seems like there's this pattern of essentially, just from what little of the intro that I saw, essentially setting up the intro to ask people who would come across as not very educated, as not very sophisticated, right? So and as maybe toxically masculine, right? Ask them, are you a feminist, right? Yeah. So they want to give an impression. Either that, or they're just too stupid to realize that they've like loaded down these first guys who say no with Black people, like seriously overrepresented Black people, and they're just too dumb to remember the incident with the holla back 10 hours walking in New York City street harassment video, where there was not a white face among any of those, quote, harassers. They were all Hispanic, all Black, and somehow they didn't realize that they might end up being accused of trying to paint street harassment as something, engaged in by the coloreds, right? Like, by the darkies.
Right. Yeah. It does. It does seem a little bit. You have this white guy. It's like, why don't you believe in my ideology? Like, why aren't you? Why don't you express the effete affectations of privilege? Like, why aren't you dressing and thinking like an aristocrat? Why don't you think more like me? Why are you thinking like a working class Black man, or even a working class nerdy Black guy?
Even a guy with like a 2-year diploma, or like he's going to school for to learn instrumentation or something like that. He's maybe a
you know something I've noticed, Karen?
What?
The groups of men with the most toxic masculinity are generally minorities and working class.
Oh yeah, no, very, very toxic.
Oh, very toxic. Oh, extremely toxic. I mean, seriously, I can totally understand why this hipster dude thinks of himself as being superior to those men who are in the working class and who are minorities and suffering from toxic masculinity. Not because their life experience and their situation requires them to embrace an identity of overt and complete agency, because otherwise they'd probably end up homeless, but because they're just privileged. There's privilege. They just are awful privileged people. All those working class and minority men. And why don't they have his ideology? Why don't they? What are you doing there? Why don't you agree with this rich white guy about how you should think?
I mean, this guy, look at him. He likes the movie Wayne's World. I finally remembered the name. And what kind of moron? What kind of uneducated moron? He probably watches Beavis and Butthead reruns too, right? So, I mean, like, toxic. Like, very toxic. Okay, moving on.
Actually, wait, before you go, this just reminds me of the CEDAW map. It's the Committee for something like Equal Women's Equality over in the world. It's the UN CEDAW map. CEDAW. Look at that map. And I once did an article on it on my old blog, Gender Attic, and I compared the UN CEDAW map to the distribution of skin color around the world. And basically, what the UN has, amazingly, what the UN has found is those countries that are whitest and wealthiest are the most moral. The most moral of all the world, and this is really like this is an obvious truism, because this is the first time in history that the group of people who have been the wealthiest and in many ways the most powerful have realized, but this time it's accurate, that we are also the most moral throughout the world. It's like the UN CEDAW map, which is basically the UN's way of saying, well, these places are hellish sin holes, and these places are basically closer to heaven and God. Exactly correlates with the distribution of skin color, and they don't ever look at that and say, maybe this CEDAW shit is a little racist.
I don't fucking know. The way they even measure some of that shit is fucked up, right? Like, because literally in the UN's measurements for equality, right? A country that, say, had a life expectancy difference of 7 years, 10 years ago, with women outliving men by 7 years, right? If that gap decreases by 2 years, right? They are considered to be less equal than before. Right? So if you close certain gaps, right? It's less equal somehow.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you actually have fewer, and what's interesting is biologically more baby boys are born, but if you don't have a gap in favor of baby girls, then you're unequal. Because the assumption is that you're engaging in infanticide or selective abortion. But the CDAW map is so full of shit. It's basically only equality, and as soon as women achieve greater than equality in any measure, it just is listed as equality.
It's just more equality.
It's just it's more equality. The more women get over men, why, holy God, that is just more equality.
Glenn Poole actually put it best. He put it best in his TED Talk. And you could tell he was so nervous because he was presenting ideas that like nobody really thinks about, right? And he's like, okay, so here's how we measure equality. You know, if men are above women in some area, that's inequality. If men and women are equal in that area, that's equality. And if women have it better in that area than men, that's even more equality. That's better. That's better equality, right? That's how this works. That's how this is all measured, right? So yeah, I don't know. In the majority of countries worldwide, where they've measured things like access to housing, access to healthcare, access to food, access to services, emergency services, social supports, things like that, access to counseling if you've been victimized, access to all kinds of things, life expectancy, stated levels of happiness or contentment with life, right? All of those things, right? In every single country in the world that they've measured this, and I could find you the fucking chart and remind me, and I'll freaking go hunting for it. But in every Western country, right, women score higher than men. Well, in most Western countries on all of these, right? In all Western countries, they score better than them on most of them. And in every country in the world, there is no country in the world where men score higher than women. Sometimes there's parity, sometimes there's a slight advantage in favor of women, right? So, like, the things that matter most, health, life expectancy, one's stated level of how happy they are with their lives, and their access to the things that they need, whether they have the ability to earn them themselves by becoming a CEO, or whether they just have access to social welfare and the things that they need to survive, right? Women have it equal or better in every country in the world. Every single one. But
Karen, that's because women have resigned themselves to a far, far, far lower situation in life than men, and they're just happy with the crumbs that fall off off of the table as the patriarchy feasts.
Oh
you see women. All women are just underneath the table, like the dog, just waiting for some crumbs to fall, and when they find a crumb, they're just so happy. Jesus Christ.
I guess you're right. And, and when men don't actually get to eat like an entire roast beef all to themselves, then that means that they don't have equal access to food or something, to the women who get those crumbs. Like, I'm just, this whole thing, the whole way we measure fucking all of this shit is retarded. But moving on, we got to get this done at some point. And I have the feeling there's going to be a lot of stupid in this video.
What do you mean by that?
What do you mean by that? Yeah, redneck. What do you mean by that? And then, like, he doesn't even answer.
Not at all. Hey, you're a comedian, man. This guy's funny.
Okay, see? Like, dude's wearing his hat backwards, right? No way that dude went to school, right? He probably didn't even finish high school.
Well, you can't really tell that about him, but he obviously, I like his cheekiness, though.
I do
no fucking way.
Yeah, no, I do too. But I mean, like, it's like the whole idea is like to sort of ask a bunch of guys, you know, that you can't even tell whether they have a job, right? And you know, and it's just the I hate to say it, people, right? The accents, the different sort of street accents, right? I guess the Ebonics, and then the redneck Southern. What are you talking about, right? And the cowboy hat, like they're trying to set these guys up as like just uneducated morons.
Well, he's found more of a mark, someone who might actually, you know, understand why you this ideology is important. Well, he might be a dude bro too. I know. I could see that you're gesturing towards his biceps. Let's see. Let's find out.
I think he is a dude bro, but he's a smart one. So they actually included a smart one.
Females are equal to males, so I don't really feel that I need to be pro-female and putting females ahead of males.
Oh my god!
I know.
Smart guy. He's figured it out. He has honestly figured it out.
But he has. It's like, oh my goodness, I just said I think men and women are equal. Why would I be a feminist? No, and then look at this next guy. Look at him.
Yeah, like, it's definitely, he might actually even be either homeless or a surfer. I love the smug look on that supercilious. Oh, yes, you're our betters, aren't you? You're our better. You're our moral betters. Better. And that you're the moral better of that guy who's probably working class, if that, or possibly even homeless. Or he may just be.
No, he probably just works in a record store and smokes a lot of weed.
Oh, that's possible too. Yeah. But definitely, what a dick this BuzzFeed reporter is. He's such a fucking dick.
Oh yeah.
And he's really he looks like he might actually be getting a chubby too. He's like, I feel morally superior to this dude.
I know, it's like a totally supercilious expression, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, my moral superiorities are being rubbed.
I'm not a woman. Now, I'm sure you're probably thinking that I edited this down, that not everyone I asked answered no. But you'd be wrong. Every single male either said no.
Male? Fuck you son of a bitch! I didn't see males there. That's what you do to you refer to a fucking farm animal. I saw men. You dick. All of those males. Oh, all of those animals that I spoke with. You fucking dick. Sorry. God fucking.
Feminism even meant. So I decided.
Oh, they didn't know what feminism even meant. There you go.
They didn't agree with you. They didn't agree with you.
He chose a bunch of men, right? Who he could present as uneducated and unsophisticated, and his conclusion is they don't know what feminism actually is because they're uneducated and unsophisticated. You see what I mean? You see how, like, that I haven't even really seen this video. I may have commented on it without even fucking watching it, right? Or commented on comments that were in the, you know, underneath this particular video, right? But that doesn't mean I watched it. I didn't watch it, right? Like, it's just,
Yeah, okay, so what we're seeing is he goes out and he finds men who are minorities or working class, and of course, they don't perceive feminism the way these other individuals that we're now going to talk to perceive feminism. Because, you know, the big difference is they feel the effects of feminism. So they see feminism in terms of effects on them. And one of them correctly identified that feminism doesn't advocate for equality. It advocates for, it thinks that any time women get more, that's more equality. Not supremacy, but more equality. And that completely explains their fucking mindset. They literally believe the instant women get more, get equal, it's equality, and anything more that women get is more equality.
Well, what I think too is that, you know, a lot of these guys, right, like they just have enough to do just dealing with their lives to really be concerned about a lot of this other shit. I mean, you could go up to, you know, the woman who works at the Tim Hortons, right? And she's here on a visa, on a work visa, and she's trying to get her permanent residency and bring her family over. And like, what does she fucking care about like, she's just doing what she can with what she has and getting by day to day, like so many other working class people who have, why would she care that, you know, only 17% of Fortune 500 CEOs are women? Why the fuck would she care? She's just trying to put food on the table and save up enough to bring her freaking husband and kids over from the Philippines or wherever, right? Like, it's a complete fucking disconnect. It's a complete, like, they're asking people who are living on one level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and they're asking, well, how come you haven't, you know, experienced the vaunted revelations of those of us on the upper tier? Like,
yes, why is it you peasants don't eat with silverware? Why don't you do that? Why are you so crude? Why do you eat in the manner that you eat? Why do you believe the things that you believe? Oh my goodness, you're so crude, so beneath us. It's like, what the fuck? We are basically watching a bunch of goddamn neo-aristocrats rubbing one out over their fucking moral superiority and engaging in an ideology that makes no sense outside of incredible fucking privilege. Because guess what? Women in cultures where they can't actually be housewives, because no man in that culture can afford to pay for someone to have hours and hours of leisure a day. In cultures where women have to go out and fucking work, or they have to make product from their homes in order for everyone to survive.
Or they have to cook their meals on a modified oven or stove made out of an old World War II ironing board with the cover removed, and then like a freaking pot full of plastic and other stuff that they can burn so that they can cook the rice and beans that they're going to feed their whole family for the night, right? Like, do you think women like that?
They can't afford feminist gender roles.
Well, they can't, and they like these are women who are like freaking carrying water. They're washing fucking clothes on a rock at the side of the fucking river. They're doing that's like, and then they're planting and harvesting and weeding what the little patch of ground that they have to actually grow food for their families, right? If they're lucky enough to have one. They can't afford to I don't know, have a dishwasher do their dishes for them and you know and get takeout 3 nights a week and you know essentially have the luxury of sitting on the internet and pondering how hard it is to be a fucking woman.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that the entirety of feminist gender roles can only come about in a very wealthy society that does no longer needs women's labor to actually survive. We're sitting in a situation that these women, like that Betty Friedan admitted to it or something, the ennui of just not doing a damn thing with your life. You know, this is privilege. These people, I don't like using the word privilege, but genuinely, these women are privileged, absolutely privileged to be able to sit back and whine about this shit.
My grandmother never had the luxury of lamenting, you know, what it's like to be bored and unfulfilled as a woman. I mean, she attended school. She was born in 1909. She attended school regularly up until grade 3. Then at that point, her father died and her mother remarried. And then there were many more children in her family. And she was expected to help her mother take care of a lot of these children. And so she attended school sporadically, right, until grade 8, at which point she left home, right, and went out on her own to make her way in the world, got several jobs, found employment, worked her way up in a department store until she was managing one of the departments in this store, right? Met her husband, settled down, had a family, right? Had kids, took over the general store in that town, which included the post office, became postmistress of her town, right? Was running the store, raising a family, keeping a house, running a freaking post office, right? And my grandfather was in the summers paving roads in, the 1950s, right? And in the winter being a rural mail carrier. So he was delivering mail to farms on foot in the snow, right? On roads that do not get plowed, right? That's what he was doing in the winter and then paving roads in the summer. And, her idea of feminism was like, what's all this feminist stuff? Like, there's work to do.
Well, and the other, like I was saying, one of the worst things I think men ever did in the West for culture or for society was to idolize this idea of them working and a woman staying at home, having time to get resentful over the fact that someone else is paying for her to sit. Other societies have sort of privileged male leisure, and what did we get out of it? The Greek societies, the underpinnings of science and philosophy. And what do we get out of the society that privileged female leisure? This hateful bullshit, which is not just hateful towards men, it's also hateful towards women. This is like junk food of gender roles, is what feminism presents. Women as eternal victims, men as eternal villains. Junk food gender roles. It seems to be satisfying to everyone, including the supercilious male feminist, because he can feel so morally superior to all the peasants and lower men. But
to all the toxically masculine men,
who essentially, there's a direct relationship between the expectations of self-sacrifice and putting away your own desires for your life in order to fund and provide for other people, and the adoption of what they call toxic masculine behaviors, which are essentially behaviors in which you sublimate your own emotions and own needs and own desires in order to be able to work and provide for others. And incidentally, I imagine those African women who are working in quarries, they also have toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
Because they have to deal with a hard life.
Yeah.
And it's toxic masculinity. It actually really has nothing to do with masculinity. It's just the adoption of a expanded perception of your own agency and a refutation. Like you say, I don't have vulnerabilities, or my vulnerabilities are less important than what I can do in my life to provide for others. And believe me, there are a lot of women on this world who also adopt a lot of the same psychology of what you are calling toxic masculinity. They disavow their own needs, they disavow their own vulnerabilities so that they can work and provide for their families. And that's what you're calling toxic masculinity. You know why you call it toxic masculinity, you supercilious BuzzFeed dipshit? Because of feminine, I don't know, because you think everything bad is male. Because penis.
Because penis. Like that woman, that single mother that everybody like raises up on a pedestal, right? Like not the one who's the welfare queen, but the one who works 2 jobs, right? To provide for her kids because her husband died or abandoned her or something, not because she frivolously divorced him or decided to have a whole bunch of kids that she couldn't afford with no partner to help her raise them, but the one who did not choose her situation, that widow who single-handedly, through working nonstop, dawn till dusk, right, to provide a better life for her kids, right? She's engaging in toxic masculinity. And somehow when she does it, she's a hero.
Yeah.
So
they don't seem to understand the psychology underlying this. Toxic masculinity, as I said, is basically a gender neutral, if you look at it the right way. It's gender neutral saying, I cannot put myself and my feelings, I can consider them now because somebody else needs me.
Well, the only reason why I would say that, this whole thing is attached to masculinity is because even in affluent societies, even in societies where everybody gets to eat and everybody gets to have a roof and everybody, for the most part, right? And you're not, the vast majority of people are not living hand to mouth, going hungry at night, if you don't fucking, buckle down and just wrap, a rag around the blisters on your feet and keep hauling bricks, right? Okay. Even in societies that are not like that, we still expect those things of men. We still expect them to deprioritize their feelings and their, and all of, but who are among the offenders? Who's among the offenders of people insisting that men deprioritize their own well-being in favor of the well-being of others? I can't. There's a whole branch of academia and a whole branch of ideology that starts with F that puts all those same burdens on men. They're just different burdens. Change yourself for the good of women, right? Okay, you don't need to wrap bandages around your feet and keep walking, right? For the good of women. No. You just need to sign up for HeForShe, right? Yeah. Fucking God damn it. Anyhow, I'm gonna, because this woman looks like smug, and I want to hear what she has to say.
So I decided to speak with Dr. Juliet Williams, a professor at UCLA's Department of Gender Studies.
A central message of feminism from the very start has been that gender inequality and the gender system as a whole isn't just bad for women, it's very bad for men too.
No, it hasn't. No, that has not been a central tenet of feminism right from the very start.
Equality?
Find me one first waver. Find me a single first wave feminist who got anything accomplished, right? Who said that the gender roles for men are just as harmful to men as the gender roles for women. That those gender roles for men are every bit as harmful to men as they are to women. Can you find that in the Declaration of Sentiments? Can you? Right? Can you find it in any of the activism on the part of women that changed the laws, right? That gave women default custody, but still stuck men with the freaking entire financial responsibility of providing for the household of his minor children, right? Can you find anything, any successful piece of activism on the part of the feminist movement? And they've been very, very successful at getting things to change, right? Changing laws, changing policies, all of those things. Show me where some successful piece of feminist advocacy, right, took a burden off of men, right? I can show you Karen DeCrow. I can show you Karen DeCrow successfully arguing in a lower court, right, that because this woman lied about being on birth control, went off birth control to intentionally get pregnant, right, this man should not be held financially responsible for that child that he did not consent to create. And that if women are to have the right to choose and have complete reproductive autonomy, they should not force men to subsidize their reproductive choices, their unilateral reproductive choices. She argued that successfully. She was a feminist who argued that successfully in a lower court, but oh my goodness, it was overturned on appeal.
Well, even more, why don't you show us feminism reversing some of the shit it's already done to men to make their lives worse, conceivably worse. And what's really interesting to me is note how all the feminists are all about social attitudes, and this idea of I don't know, like this idea of identity. They never really look at these in terms of brick and mortar solutions. As soon as a feminist actually puts down a brick, one brick, to create a shelter for men, a domestic violence shelter for men, that's the day that I will eat my hat.
Yeah, no, what they want to do, right? This is their whole thing, right? Is that see, women required immediate legal equality. They required immediate legal, structural, institutional change, right? So it wasn't, nobody said to feminists, okay, well, just prove that prove that women on the whole, right, are worthy of this change, right? And then we'll consider it. We'll consider enshrining it in the law. We'll consider giving them this right? So the whole pay before you play thing, right? Like the way feminists will say, oh, well, we really oppose all of this shared parenting legislation, right? And we will undermine our democracy. We will corrupt our fucking democracy and undermine our democratic process in order to block these bills from going through. We are that opposed to them. Men, your job now, as a whole, every single man, right? Change more diapers, right? Take more responsibility in the home with the caregiving roles, right? Do all of this, prove yourselves worthy, right? And then the legal changes will just follow effortlessly, right? Then you won't even need shared parenting legislation because the courts will just give you shared parenting automatically because you've proved yourselves worthy over the last 50 years, every fucking single one of you, right? Change society first and change how society sees men first, and then, the law will just follow, right?
It's just a big fucking coincidence that society's social attitudes towards men and women are usually developed by mothers. So they're asking men to change something that men can't change, which is social attitudes towards men and women. And the other thing that I wanted to fucking point out on all of this is that I know that there may be feminists or people who are listening to this and saying, well, you guys aren't putting together bricks and mortar, blah, blah. Okay. Feminists, a feminist organization, spent $5 million on a single ad to show the population the absolutely shocking and never before and never understood by anyone concept that women are victims of domestic violence, that they can be victims of domestic violence. They're bringing attention to this totally unheard of, unvoiced concept in society, never been thought of before, never been done before. People need to know women can be victims of domestic violence because they don't already know. They don't already know. And they spent $5 million fucking dollars on one ad to tell us what we already know.
Yeah, not just that.
$5 million fucking dollars.
Not just that women can be victims, but that hitting your wife is wrong. Oh my goodness, what a novel concept.
What? $5 million fucking dollars just to repeat an already existing social norm to people who embrace it entirely. That's what they spend money on. And if we had $5 million, believe me, well, probably I would give it to people who can do this better, but there would be a fucking shelter or a helpline or some way of helping men get back on their feet. Something would come of it that would be in existence in a brick and mortar sense.
Yeah.
So if you're saying, like, you guys don't do anything either, feminists don't, consider that feminists get $5 million to do one goddamn ad. They don't do anything. They got $5 million. We don't do anything. I think we have like $5,000 a month at this point.
Yeah.
It's not that we don't do anything. It's just that
we're actually really fortunate. Actually, Honey Badger Radio is really, really fortunate in the amount of support that we get. The amount of support that somebody like Earl Silverman got after I did I did a little bit of a plug for him and asked people to send him a little bit of money, right? And he was just like, oh my goodness, I got like $8,000 worth of donations over that. Like, thank you so much. because $8,000 to him was a massive fucking big deal, because he was running a domestic violence shelter out of his own pocket.
Yeah.
With no budget for advertising or outreach, right? No budget whatsoever. So not even, that he can pay for ads and pay, to have his domestic violence shelter show up, on, as an ad on a website or a blog or whatever, right? He can't afford that, right? That would actually generate more donations, right? So he had no fucking advertising budget for his services and no advertising budget for essentially to get donations, to invite people to fund his services, the services he was providing, right? He had nothing. He was working on a fucking shoestring. He was working, I think as far as I know, his job, he was like the fucking handyman in an apartment building. And somehow he bought a house and turned it into a domestic violence shelter, right? And managed, with no fucking budget for outreach, no budget for, for advertising, that yes, this place for men and their children exists if you need to get out, right? No fucking help from any of the existing, from the Alberta network of women's shelters who were fighting him every step of the way, right? The feminist fucking domestic violence industry, right? Do you think that they allowed him, a little corner of space on one of their websites to advertise his men's safe house? Yeah, no, they didn't, right? Guy could not catch a break. Government gave him $1,800 grant over the course of 20 years of him providing these services, mostly out of his own pocket, right? A single $800 grant is what he got from the government. And you're going to fucking tell me that, yeah, we just don't do anything. This guy built a shelter out of nothing. He ran a domestic violence and men's crisis line, right? For 20 years out of his own pocket, answering the phone at 3:00 in the morning to talk guys out of suicide, right? Okay, for 20 years, and ran a domestic violence shelter for 2 years that he had to buy himself, right? Out of his own pocket, and fund with no advertising budget whatsoever, entirely from private donations, when nobody was really aware that it even existed to donate to, because he had no budget for that, right? And you're going to tell me that we don't do anything, that our side, right, we don't actually do anything.
Well, think about it. $5 million for 30 seconds. $5 million for 30 seconds. 30-second ad. And feminism could put forth that kind of money on a 30-second ad and still says it's about equality and has done nothing brick and mortar for men. And then they presume to look at us with our rather more modest budget and say, why haven't you done anything brick and mortar for men? Be like, fucking somebody in a goddamn Porsche running past our fucking 1980s Gremlin and saying, well, what are you doing? Why aren't you able to do all the things that I'm fucking able to do? Well, because, first of all, we don't have the same resources. Why aren't you doing them? You say you're for equality. Why doesn't that ever... You talk about men fighting against social attitudes, which is not actually where men are strong, because women are the ones who really create the social attitudes. You talk about men doing that, these abstract things in order to benefit themselves. You never do anything concrete. And yet you have a budget to spend $5 million to tell people things that they already fucking know.
Yeah.
And then
I'm just, it's an infuriating fucking thing. I'm gonna move on a little bit because I'm like just really annoyed now.
saddles men and women with so many limiting stereotypes, whether it's for women, the idea that you have to be pretty and motherly and shy and quiet, or for men, this idea that in order to have social value, you have
Banana. Okay, what the fuck is wrong with being pretty, motherly, or shy and quiet?
Well, I mean, like, I can understand, like, not wanting to have to be those things, right? But yeah, no, it was interesting because if you noticed, I don't know if you guys could see it, the little annotation that popped up here. You know, can feminists wear makeup and still be feminist? You know,
Oh,
so
goodness. Well, but
obviously,
that like, doesn't force things on women too?
like I'm not a feminist and I don't wear makeup. You're not a feminist.
Everything is problematic according to feminism. There's all kinds of shit that you can't do or think. Why is changing one strict set of gender roles? And the biggest thing that feminism does is it trains women to, in every single fucking part of their life, reduce what they experience to things, not connect what they experience to their actions, but say, no, this is the result of someone else's actions. So feminism trains women to have an external locus of control.
Well,
that is something very strictly applied by feminism on women. And you are complaining about these other gender roles that are actually rather innocuous?
What I find interesting is, you know, with just that question of can a feminist wear makeup, right? Okay, well, why would a feminist ask, can a feminist wear makeup, right? Well, because because the whole idea of makeup, right? Oh, I don't know, there was some very unknown and, you know, obscure feminist named Naomi Wolf who wrote a book called The Beauty Myth that essentially blamed women's desire to be pretty, women's desire to wear makeup, women's desire to look attractive, to have a nice figure, and to wear clothes that accentuate that figure, all of those things, right? To this horrible conspiratorial sort of cabal of patriarchal shitlords and, you know, and people in the men in the beauty industry, right? That and men who consume women, right? That they consume women visually the way somebody would consume a product, right? And so essentially, right, they externalized the locus of control and they said, well, like, women don't have an innate desire to be pretty. They don't have an innate desire to be attractive to the opposite sex. They don't have an innate desire for these things. These things are all imposed on them, right, by outside patriarchal forces. So of course, out of that assumption that this is a role that's imposed on them by men, right, in the service of the male gaze, that there is, it is a rigid set of expectations for women that are innately oppressive and externalized to them, right? That it all comes from outside, right? These powerful cultural forces, right? Of course, when you're a feminist and you're talking constantly about cultural forces and how they influence people and how they impact them and how they harm them, right? Of course you would ask, is it okay for a feminist to wear makeup? Because you've just told this woman who's asking this question, you've just convinced her that the only reason she would want to wear makeup is to conform with rigid patriarchal roles, gender roles, and to present herself as an object of consumption for the male gaze, which perpetuates the oppression of women.
Okay. Ooh, echo done. So that pretty much what I was saying. Feminism, in saying that we shouldn't engage in these rather more benign gender roles, being a mother, and they're not really roles, they're aspirations, being pretty, being a good mother, you know, being polite and modest, It says don't engage in those gender roles. Engage in our gender role, which is to see yourself as an object acted upon by the patriarchy in every single fucking choice and situation that you find yourself in.
Mhm.
No, it's like fuck. What? This isn't even from the frying pan into the fire. This is like from the, I don't know, the side table into the goddamn inferno. It's like you're taking something that's basically innocuous and basically driven by women's own vanity into something horrific. Your gender roles are horrible, feminism. They're disturbing. They're just totally fucked up. And they are gender roles. They're the worst gender roles that anybody's conceived of in the history of humanity. And I reject them utterly. I reject your fucking gender role feminism. I reject them with every fiber of my fucking being. Because I am an agent, and my existence is a result of my choices and my actions, and you can't take that away from me, you smarmy, smug, fucking traditionalist bigot, whatever you want to call her. Junk food pushing Mick feminism.
Mick feminism. That's a good one. All right, moving on.
To be aggressive and competitive and angry and all these expectations.
Wait a second.
I know all of the nice things, like, okay, let's go back and look. Let's go back and look.
Yeah, you saw that too, did you?
Oh yeah, no, it's like, okay, so we got like women smiling and doing something harmless. Oh, we got a very pretty girl, right? And she is pretty. Right, and she just looks like a sweetie, and then we go, a mom blowing bubbles with her little girl. Oh, that's so nice. So these are the gender roles for women. Oh, and she's just smiling and just being pretty, and just she'd never murder anybody,
shy,
or rape anyone. Yeah, and then violent. Oh. Nice plastic oxnards there, dude.
Yeah.
He's angry.
I'm not really afraid of this guy.
Who would be afraid of this guy? Honestly, I could fucking clock him. Look at him. He's yelling. He's yelling.
Like doing some sort of primal scream therapy, I think.
Yeah, no, he should do that into the pillow. It actually lets other people watch TV in the same house.
It took me 3 weeks to find these horn rim glasses that accentuate my jaw. I'm so furious.
Oh dear.
Oh yeah, okay, but yeah, you saw that and I saw that.
Oh yeah,
society asks women to be decent people, to be, to have body positive characteristics like modesty, like maybe listening more than you talk, quietness, and being a mother, and also being pretty, all very positive or neutral qualities. But society turns men into demons.
Yeah. Oh yeah. God.
No concept that there could be anything called toxic femininity.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Or even that, maybe we shouldn't even call it toxic femininity. It's more like toxic victimhood.
Why does this guy have icing sugar on him?
I think it's supposed to be winter.
It's supposed to be snow, but it's so not snow.
Yeah, so why they would use a guy with icing sugar on them to do what is he demonstrating anyway?
I don't know. Like he's a warrior. He's a warrior, but like he doesn't have a warrior's build actually. A warrior would not be muscled like this.
Probably not. Well, I mean, more oblique action, so they wouldn't have that quite the same V. But let's see what they have to say.
Oh my God.
And angry, and all these expectations that we now know.
I think you got to reverse it a bit.
Suffering.
Oh God! Wow, our friend is back.
God.
Oh my God! It's gonna get worse. It's gonna get worse.
Okay.
This idea that in order to have social value, you have to be aggressive and competitive and angry, and all these expectations that we now know cause so much suffering.
I've seen.
All right.
Who?
Yeah, well, the thing is that these aren't actually social values. Being angry, like women, or sorry, trans men who talked about transitioning, talk about how they cannot get angry after having transitioned into a man. People will
Yeah, no.
will say, "Calm down." They're not
Yeah,
allowed
no.
to express anger.
Because it's scary. It's
Yeah.
scary when it's coming from men.
Yeah, so men are not actually allowed to express anger or be angry. And the other thing is competitive and violent. No, men are expected to achieve. In some scenarios, it requires competitiveness. In some scenarios, it requires violence. But who is doing the expectations?
Yeah. No,
Like-
and I would actually say that it's not so much that men are socialized to, and I think that there's a biological component to this as well, right? Because testosterone has really not been clearly, everybody used to think, oh, testosterone is the aggression hormone, and testosterone is what causes aggression, and the latest research just casts all of that into the realm of like questionable and dubious. In fact, they find that you can't tell from a man's blood serum testosterone how aggressive he's going to be. You cannot tell. You can tell that testosterone promotes certain pro-social behaviors, such as fairness in bargaining and stuff like that. But that when testosterone does not cause competitiveness, it is when you compete and enjoy a victory, that's when your testosterone levels go up, right? When you compete and you suffer a loss, your testosterone levels go down, right? So testosterone is not the cause of aggression, right? But risk aversion, right? I think that that's the key, right? Because if there is a key to your willingness to engage in your own violence rather than calling the police or your brother or whatever, and getting them to engage in your violence for you, right? It's risk aversion, right? So I don't think that men are encouraged to necessarily competitiveness is not. I think men socially, right, they understand that competitiveness and aggression are not always called for, right? But that there are times when being a coward, right, or shying away from a risk is not okay. It's not socially acceptable, right? And this is probably why, the majority of politicians are men, that the majority of CEOs are men, that the majority of the people who jump down onto the subway tracks to rescue somebody are men. The majority of bystanders who just like run into a burning building to pull somebody out, they're men, right? Is not because of aggression, right? But because of the thing that actually facilitates aggression, actual violence, higher levels of actual violence in men than in women, which is they're not as risk averse, right? So the very, very thing that makes a man more likely to punch another guy in the face than than a woman is to get into a freaking hair pulling cat fight, right? Is that they are less averse to taking physical risks. So if you want to breed out the violence and the aggression and all of those things, well, just understand what you're also breeding out of men, because aggression has nothing to do with it. Aggression, I can be a guy, I can be Don Corleone and never fucking lift a finger to hurt anybody, right? I just have to, tell somebody else to do it, just like women do, right? And how is that not aggression, right? Just because I'm not committing my own violence.
Okay, sorry, I had to mute you because I can hear that the echo is happening, and I'm gonna, I'll because it'll take a little time to be unmuted. But the other one, I wanted to build on what you had to say, Karen.
Mhm.
And just why, when they describe the things that are expected from men in society, why did they go for violence, aggression, and anger as opposed to providing for women,
Self-sacrifice.
self-sacrifice, the expectation, like, for example, the Batman shooting, that guy not run away, but actually sacrifice himself for his partner.
Yeah.
Self-sacrifice, providership, and protection of women. Why didn't they go for those expectations of men? Why did they choose? It seems really selective.
It really does.
The expectations, and also very selective on consequences of those expectations. If you have a group of people that is expected to put themselves in harm's way to protect another group of people, and expected to put their own interests aside to provide for that group of people, they are going to adopt a certain psychological attitude towards their own needs and vulnerabilities that you then term toxic masculinity, in which case not recognizing them, not expressing them, because they don't want to burden anyone with them. And second of all, because expressing them, you have to have some way to deal with it. There's no point. For example, crying alone, it offers no relief because no one's heard you. If you cannot expect anybody to help you with your vulnerabilities, there's no point expressing them.
Yeah.
So all of that expectation that men protect women, that men sacrifice for women, that men provide for women, requires a mindset that you term toxic masculinity, a mindset of rejecting one's vulnerabilities and one's feelings in favor of one's actions and abilities to help others. You are disingenuous fucks. This is deliberate repackaging of reality. That anyone can, you really think that anger is more of an imposed value on men, expressing their anger is more of an imposed value on men, then I invite you to find a single fucking headline that shames a man for not expressing his anger the way that boyfriend of that woman who fled instead of protecting her was shamed for his action. You find me one goddamn place in media where men are shamed for not being angry, the way that kid guy was shamed for being a coward for not protecting his woman, or any man is shamed for being a coward for not protecting women, not putting his life on the line to protect women. You find one fucking place where men are shamed for not showing anger. One! You fucking disingenuous fucktards!
Yeah, no, they're...
Sorry, I probably blew out everyone's eardrums.
And they teach this at university. Isn't that great? All right, I'm going to move on. Hopefully I won't sneeze anymore. I'm sorry, I've been having a sneezing fit. So,
young men suffering from mental illness, unable to ask for help, for fear it would make them less of a man or less of a man.
Dickwad. Blue cunt waffle.
I drink male tears, Allison.
Oh, like, seriously, you really think the reason why men don't ask for help is because they think that they're going to be seen as a woman, or because no one will fucking listen to them? Because guess what? I hear a lot of guys asking for help. My fucking email inbox is full of them asking for help, Emma. All of them. Help I can't fucking give. You stupid sanctimonious
multi-millionaire bitch.
Multi-millionaire bitch. You stupid. Men ask for
Emma
help.
Watson.
No one fucking listens.
Emma Watson.
Much giving fucking...
Emma Watson, I have a suggestion for you. Why don't you take some of those multiple millions of dollars of cash that you like lie naked in and like rub yourself with every night, right? And set up a men's health clinic in your area. Why don't you do that?
Why don't you create a men's helpline? Or something to help? Why don't you donate to the campaign against living miserably? Or Mankind UK? Why don't you donate to these people? Why don't you donate 5 fucking years ago? Or 3 fucking years ago when Earl Silverman was at the end of his fucking rope trying to keep his fucking shelter alive? You talk about men not asking? Because bitches like you don't give. That's why men don't ask. Because they know that as soon as you ask, first of all, someone like you is going to give them nothing. Before you tell men to ask for help, you give it. You build something. You put down that first brick. And yes, I'm going to fucking yell.
You know, like honestly, like, and two, right? Like, because he was at the end of his rope, and then he literally ended up at the end of fucking rope, right? And what did the feminist media have to say in response to that and to accusations that his cries for help, his 20-year mission, his 6-year attempt to even get a human rights hearing based on the government's discrimination against men in refusing to fund him, what did he get from feminist media? Accusations that he was crazy. He was crazy and he was aggressive. And, he just didn't know how to work within the system. That's what he got after he was dead. That was the feminist eulogy for this guy whose 20-year fucking mission was to provide the kinds of services that you think, it's just men's masculinity that's preventing them from getting help.
I want to put a moratorium on this bullshit. Emma, you and other blue currant waffles like you, don't ever talk about men not being able to ask for help because asking for help would get them labeled female until you have taken one single fucking dollar of your many millions and actually put it towards helping men. Then you can do that. Or if you don't have money as a feminist, or if you actually get off your ass and create an email address where men can write to and arrange shows where those men who have written to you can feel like they've been heard by people who care about their issues. If you've done the work to actually listen to men and have them feel heard, then you can talk about this issue. Until that moment, go back to wherever you hold your great vault of millions and just rub yourself out on them. And stop morally posturing over men who you won't even help. That men won't ask for help and you won't even help them.
Yeah, no. It goes beyond that. It's not that she's not going to help them. It's that she's going to recruit them to be put into the service of women. Right? And I know the exact date. That she changed her website. Right? That when you clicked on the HeForShe pledge, right, where she ungendered it, and it was, I fucking forget, but I have screenshots of
June,
between and the next. Sorry?
I think you said before it was June sometime.
It was last June sometime, right? When she had been getting flack for this speech, right? And she maybe or somebody who runs that organization said, maybe we need to ungender this, because initially it had said that the HeForShe pledge was, in taking this HeForShe pledge, I'm pledging to stand up against all forms of violence and sexism against women and girls, right? And then it changed to, in taking this pledge, I'm pledging to stand up against all forms of sexism and in order to create a better society for everyone. Right? But that was after she'd been called on all of this. This was after she had been essentially told, okay, so you think the cure for, male suicide in the UK is to recruit men to serve women? The fuck is wrong with you?
All right, let's you know what, I don't think she's actually even spoken much, so
movement that is by, for, and about women, but it's also very much something that men are welcome to participate in, and in fact that we need.
Okay, stop.
I know.
by, for, and about women, but men are welcome to participate in.
Yeah,
Where's the equality?
and they need those men. Well, because who's going to do the heavy lifting? Who's going to haul the bricks if they don't have some men in there? I mean,
maybe black women. Get some muscle over here.
It's like Valerie Solanas, right? And her big fantasy. Okay, well, we have to keep some of the men alive, right? It's just like kill off most of them, but we'll keep some of them. They'll be the men's scum auxiliary, right? And they will, be doing all of the hard labor and all, and being milked for their semen and all of that. And that'll be men's place in my feminist utopia, right? Of course, feminism needs men, right? Who's going to keep the lights on and the fucking water running if it doesn't have men?
Black women.
Women? Black women. Yeah, not in this society.
Oh no, seriously, black women. That's the plan. Let me explain the radical feminist plan for you, black women. Who are
maybe in Africa, maybe in Africa, but in this society, in this culture.
No, Karen, they won't have a choice, you see, because this is the radical feminist plan. They're going to get rid of all men and replace them with black women.
Well, and Filipino women and
Filipino women and Hispanic women. That's what's going to happen. Seriously, that is exactly what's going to happen in the feminist utopia with no men. Who do you think's going to do all the labor?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, it's not going to be this woman.
Oh,
she's gonna have some black women doing the labor for it. Remember the Black Lives Matter protest with the female professor? Got to get some muscle over here. Who came?
Yeah. And then a whole bunch of black
men and a black woman.
Yeah.
2 black men and a black woman. So this professor and her feminist utopia with no men, who's going to be doing the labor? Who did that feminist professor call to get some muscle over here? And who came? 2 black men and a black woman.
Well, you'd think that like to look at her. I don't think this woman has ever changed a tire. Like I don't think she's ever cleaned her own gutters. I really don't. She might plant bulbs or something. Plant tulip bulbs or something. In the fall before the snow hits, right? She might like get her hands a little bit dirty, but not to do anything that's actually like men's work. I doubt she's ever fixed her own toilet,
and she never will.
No.
Essentially, what will happen is the next runners up will become the men, and the next runners up in the lack of femininity department, according to the structures created by women like this. Oh yeah, you benefit from the beauty ideal, lady. I mean, you're not exactly attractive, but the beauty ideal is incredibly one race and one class. So you benefit from it, and that's the point. That's why you supposedly fight against it, but you still promote it. The hypocrisy. It burns, but it may be too difficult for me to explain this.
Oh yeah. Okay, we're gonna move on. I'm gonna take another pill because I still have a headache. Moving on.
On woman and child to be on board with this.
How can we?
Can we go back a bit? Can we go back? I just wanted to hear that again.
We need every man, woman, and child to be on board.
Why is she laughing like Dr. Evil? Just take your pill and we'll listen to this again. I mean, I get a distinctly sinister sense from that laugh. You can use J and K to navigate.
Okay, shush. Try to play it.
Participate in, and in fact that we need everyone, man, woman, and child, to be on board with this.
Oh, really? So can we pause? Just pause it at that face before she goes to Emma Watson. That's a face of trust if I've ever seen one.
Yeah.
Oh, I certainly would trust you as like a 5-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Come here, Sally. Come sit on Auntie's lap. Oh.
Oh,
It's
okay.
a good rape. It's a good rape.
Yeah. Okay, moving on.
To be on board with this.
How
Look
can
at
we
this.
expect?
Okay, I get what it is. I get what it is. It's the way that she says this.
Is
It's like she says this the way the creepy aunt would say this.
yeah.
It's like, yeah, I don't think you're a creepy aunt. I don't think you have my best interest in mind.
Yeah.
This candy tastes funny, Aunt Sally. This
I
candy
think
tastes funny.
I think women have a they have a different way of they have a very they do that sort of laugh and that, oh, ha, 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 and the smile and the really friendly, because it does lead people to believe that they can be trusted, right? And I suppose if you don't know enough, if you haven't encountered enough of those kinds of women, you may not realize that's not necessarily something that can be trusted. So.
Okay, before we go on,
Mm-hmm.
I want you to just go back. Somebody mentioned it, and I think this is what it is. Go back and look at pause on her face again, and I'm gonna so we can see that, and then I'm gonna share my screen so we can do a little comparison.
Okay.
We need to get you men's on board on this particular.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Oh my fucking god. Oh
Yeah,
my
no.
god.
That fits.
Okay, go back to the video. We were for those of you.
God, that totally fits. Holy shit.
For anybody who's listening after the fact, we just showed an image of the troll face. No,
Yeah.
the 4chan, I think, troll face.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, it's a dead ringer. Don't you trust that face, guys? Don't you trust that face? That's a trustworthy face if there ever was one. That person really has your best interests in mind there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Expect change in the world when only half of it is invited or feel welcome to participate in the conversation.
Wow.
Men, I would like
That's a good point.
I know, except for that they're not being invited to participate in the conversation. They're just being invited to like carry handbags and luggage.
Oh
and
shit. It happened again, Karen. Look at the face.
Yeah.
Oh my, why does this keep happening? Every time we pause this shit, we always get these micro expressions. There's these horrible fucking micro expressions that always reveal this kind of sanctimonious, my God, she looks older suddenly.
Yeah, no, she looks like in this one freeze frame, she looks like fucking Ursula, like the evil witch of the sea.
Yeah. Like she just looked like she aged, I don't know, 20 years and became a hell of a lot less attractive. I guess it's just a moment where she wasn't, marshaling her features into some sort of earnest.
Oh, I'm the queen of like having like anytime you freeze any of my videos while I'm talking, I look like a complete retard. So
yeah, but that doesn't look like a retard. That looks, she doesn't look retarded.
Yeah.
Like you don't look evil. You just have constant dirt face going on, just like me.
Yeah.
But that's different. That, looking like you're about to accidentally, get up and then fall over your coffee table onto your dog, and then your dog's gonna scream and then run out the door, and and everybody's gonna be like, "What the fuck kind of commotion is this?" And then you get up and you have a black eye from hitting the coffee table on the edge, and that's dirt face.
Yeah.
That's you barely can exist in this world without doing something incredibly stupid. This isn't dirt face. And none of these faces are dirt face. They are, in fact, that's one of the things that was really weird about this. You would expect dirt face. And what you end up getting is these micro expressions of pure evil. It's like, take a deep look at this. Look at this face. For all of those of you who really think she's attractive. That's in there.
Actually, she looks like the queen, the evil queen from Sleeping Beauty, Disney's Sleeping Beauty. She just needs those, like, that headdress with the horns.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
she looks like she's about to take a chunk out of someone's brain. Arr! But not as
Like,
a zombie, just like
bite their throat out and, like, fuck it with one of those microphones.
oh God, that was really dark, Karen. That
What?
was fucking dark.
What? I have repeatedly said that when Brian steps away from his keyboard and his Doge avatar is like staring right into the screen with the whites of its eyes showing, it literally looks like it's going to rip out my throat and fuck the hole. And yeah, no, this looks like this too, right? Except for this face looks more like that it would enjoy it. The Doge face, right? Just looks like it needs to do it. It just feels compelled to do it. This face looks like I'm gonna do it and I'm gonna like it.
Yeah. Well, let's give her a chance. Let's go to another still frame and see what she looks like. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go back a little.
Oh my fucking God, that's even worse.
That's like a Joker.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Okay. Well,
Okay.
that's where she's. So out of 4 still frames, we get one where she looks like a pensive child lost in the woods, and the rest look like Joker or Ursula.
Oh my God!
Oh my God! Oh my! This is
here
slightly
she goes.
sinister.
This is the one she knows she's got the audience. She knows they're buying into it. Look at that beautiful. Oh. That beautiful grin.
Well, you know why it looks sinister? It's because it's fake. You can see because there's no eye action.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's see. Oh my God. How is it possible that it's not like she's unattractive? It's just like everything, when you pause it, it completely erases the whole, oh, I'm a poor lost lamb in the woods, and it becomes, I'm the fucking Joker.
Yeah.
How is that?
I don't know how it's
It looks
possible.
like she just farted.
Did
anyone hear that?
Yeah. It's like, oops. Okay. Let's continue on.
Yeah.
Just in the conversation, men, I would
Oh
like
my
to take
fucking.
to extend your formal invitation.
Ugh. You can really see it once you just point it out. Once you go through it again, like it just it's like completely dissolves the whole affectation.
Yeah.
Of being this, what did Brave the World say? I'm just a girl who knows nothing of the world. Bullshit.
I'm just a girl living in the world, or something like that. Yeah. But I love the all the applause from all of these heads of state. Well, not heads of state, but ambassadors to the UN from all these different countries. And yeah, no, like this she's just a little girl who wants to fight for gender equality.
Just for women.
Yeah, well, but because women like her are so treated so unequally. And you even look at like here's a woman in a hijab. Oh my goodness, and here's looks like it might be another woman, and woman, and like lots of women here, right? Women everywhere. Women. Oh, here's a couple women, and women all through the UN, right? But somehow women aren't represented. Oh, here's one, and here's one. It's just like this. Just like here's another one, and another one. It's the most amazing thing. Like there's like lots of women at the UN. Isn't that interesting? But somehow, women have no power.
Okay. Okay. So those of you who say that this is like, why do we do this? It actually, micro expressions and something called Duper's Delight, look it up on YouTube, is a thing. Now, it's different than just finding dirt face. What's creepy about this is you don't find dirt face. Was there really one dirt face in all of that, Karen?
Oh, there not really. I mean, there was like the one where she looked like she just cut one.
Yeah, well, that's not really dirt face. That's just like, I hope nobody smells that.
Yeah.
But it's like this is a thing. Like, people will reveal what they're actually feeling in these subtle images or subtle facial expressions, and it's really telling when you choose. Sorry, go ahead.
One of the interesting things is I don't know if any of you guys know about her name was Charlie. God, fuck, Charlie Rogers, Charlie Rogers, and she perpetrated a hoax, hate crime. She's a lesbian activist down in like fucking North Carolina or some shit, right? She perpetrated a hate crime hoax, right? Where she said that 3 men had broken into her home in the middle of the night and raped her and carved Christian symbols into her body, right? And you know, used all kinds of Christian anti-gay language and all of this, right? And it was before it was exposed as a hoax. There was a blog where the guy actually takes apart the interview. She did a media interview, right? When there was some question, right? There's some question as to whether it had happened or not. And there were some suspicions that it might not be, might not have been, true. It might have been a hoax, right? And so she did a media interview and he analyzed her facial expressions and her language, right? And he, before any of this was actually revealed to be a hoax, he said, absolutely 100% sure that this is a hoax because, and he essentially, he did a transcript and he examined all of the nuances of her language, that she used distancing language whenever she was talking about the possibility that she was being dishonest, all kinds of things like that, right? And it really is, and then her facial expressions, and even sort of when she cries during the interview, when she tears up and when she doesn't, and all of those things that led this guy to believe that absolutely 100% Charlie Rogers has perpetrated a hoax. And then like a month later, it was discovered that she'd made the whole thing up, right? So, and he didn't do this on any of the facts of the case. He didn't examine. He just examined this one media interview to sort of try to judge whether she was telling the truth. And he was like, yeah, no, she's not. So yeah, there is something to this sort of being able to detect dishonesty, being able to detect people who are trying to put one over on you. All of those things, right? So, yeah.
Indeed.
All right.
But I mean, be skeptical of us. If you think that that's not correct. I mean, some people mention that Karen has the same sort of she has a smirk on her face when she's going in for the kill on someone's illogic, but that makes sense.
Yeah.
She's going in for the kill on someone's illogic. It doesn't make sense, this heartfelt plea for Emma Watson to be looking like, I got one over on them.
I'm going in for the kill.
I'm going in for the kill.
Yeah, no. Right. When I go in for the kill, I make it very clear. Right. I think probably the funnest line I ever delivered in a video was when I did the final part of Is Feminism Hate, right? Responding to Russ Lindquist. And he had accused me of being condescending to Danielle Paradis in my previous 2 videos on the subject. And I said, I'm sure I sounded condescending because I was, right?
Exactly. I mean, there's no preface here. When we go for the kill, we go for the kill. And you can know that. And we're not going to like pretend to be a little lamb lost in the woods as we are breaking a fucking deer's neck with our teeth, as Emma Watson is apparently doing right here.
Mm,
Okay, let's
Agreed.
do this thing.
all right.
A like straight cisgender man and not identifying as feminist.
Oh, he's wearing his hat the right way. He's wearing a purple shirt. It's clean and it doesn't have Wayne's World on it.
And he's posturing. He's posturing morally, just like a neo-aristocrat.
Is an incredibly fragile state of being to be in.
I decided to ask some of my friends who are feminists, what exactly
These guys all look like they're, well, except maybe this guy, his pants aren't. He's got the bulgy, too many things in his front pockets thing. But
He might be like a computer programmer, but still. Do you notice the difference between the ones who are feminist? Oh,
Yeah.
or should I say the ones who are neo-aristocrats and the men who are actually expected to make the kind of sacrifices that this society expects of men?
Yeah, no, these guys who grew up in like middle class and upper middle class homes, right, and went to college, maybe went on to, maybe they're going on to get their master's degree. I mean, even this guy, like I said, he looks like, even just the way he wears his jeans, sort of rolled up, and like you can tell that he didn't buy those jeans at fucking Walmart. So,
well, the other thing is that I want to point out is, so he's talking to some of his feminist friends, and
look, red socks. It's like Morton Downey Jr. Red socks.
Oh, yeah, but the other thing here is, not only are these guys of a particular demographic that's very distinct from the men that he talked with from the beginning.
Yeah, but they're all his friends.
But the other thing is that they're part of a demographic that might need to derive a sense of masculinity from feminism, because feminism tells them that they are all powerful. When they're divorced from that kind of, I guess, organic, more primal masculinity that the original males in the front of this video were showing, I think they might be more inclined to buy into shit like men's agency. Everything that the world is a result of men's choices. Yeah, right. But anyway, they need that kind of flattery to feel masculine. And the irony is that they say it's a fragile position. It's not fragile at all. You just want that feeling of omnipotence, that omnipotence. And it sort of seems like you want it, despite supposedly abdicating actual masculinity. Well, why don't you abdicate actual masculinity entirely? Wear your pink shirt and your red socks and your earrings and your problem glasses, and also admit to your vulnerabilities as a man and the fact that men do not create all of society and are not ultimately responsible for it. Admit that you aren't all impotent as or all omnipotent as men. Go all the way.
Well, like honestly, I think that they will be saying like, oh, we have vulnerabilities too, and feminism allows us to talk about those. Yeah, except for you still have privilege, so you're still uniformly and universally above women. You still hold the superior position. The only difference between that masculine black man in the beanie, right, at the very start, and you, is that he believes that he's masculine, right? And that makes him different from women. Probably not superior. I doubt he thinks that he's superior. I think he's better at being a man than a woman is, right? But I don't think he thinks men are better than women, right? You need the crutch of the privilege narrative in order to maintain this idea that you are distinct from women somehow, and that gives you some benefit, right, above what women have, right, in some way, right, that there has to be something good about being a man, right? Because otherwise, why would you not want to just fucking lop your junk off and go through a transition, right? It's got to be something good about being a man. And it's that unearned privilege. Okay, I'm going to move on.
Yeah.
What exactly being a feminist means to them?
Traditional masculinity is very dehumanizing to men. It sort of paints us as impervious, emotionless, strong, hardy creatures.
No, it does not. No, it does not. It does not portray you as lacking emotion. It portrays you as mastering your emotions. Fucking retards. You're allowed to have them, right? But when the fucking crisis hits, you're supposed to set them aside. That's what traditional masculinity does. And you know what? When a fucking crisis hits, somebody has to put their emotions aside and deal with it. I've been in that position. I've been in the position of pulling fucking two human beings out of a fucking undertow and saving their lives at risk of my own. I've been there, right? And you know what? When you're there and you know you're the only one, there's nobody. There's nobody. Everybody on the shore, right? There's no lifeguard, and everybody on the shore is fucking 100 fucking feet away. So it's just you. Just fucking you. That's it. That's all these two kids have. Right? Do you not think that that requires sublimating your emotions? Do you not think that when you do that, right, that there's an, you know, like, just, it's perfectly fine to panic. It's perfectly fine to let your emotions just like take you over and oh, then we all die. Like, what do you, somebody has to be the adult in the room.
All right. Toxic masculinity is, again, what you need, the kind of mentality you need to adopt in order to be the person where the buck stops. If you want men to take a break from having to have what you call toxic masculinity, you got to expect women to step up to the plate. And you don't. You expect women to be eternally served by men. Where do you think the toxic masculinity, where do you think the abdication of men's own vulnerabilities and feelings come from when you say he for she? What do you think that's going to encourage? When you expect men to put aside their own interests to serve women, toxic masculinity, what you call toxic masculinity, is the result. So what the fuck are you doing here? Except spinning around and sucking your own anuses.
Well, and why some guys would see. And how is it fucking toxic? How is it toxic, right? To encourage, right? To encourage the type of maturity that it takes to be able to look at two kids who are being pulled out to fucking sea, right? And not turn around and scream, somebody help me, while they fucking paddle like mad toward the shore, but keep getting pulled out to fucking sea. Like, how is it toxic, right, to be raised, you know, in such a way, right, where you are willing to actually reach out and grab one in each hand, right, and struggle for 20 minutes to pull them to the shore? How is that fucking toxic?
It's not toxic, it's necessary. And what the real problem is that it is this encroaching, creeping idea that we cannot expect people to be agents. But the irony is that they still maintain the role of men as being agents for women. They still maintain that in this sort of like back ass, like Rubik's, like totally like back on itself bizarro definition. But let's move on. I'm sure there's more shit to get through.
Oh my God.
Creatures. I understand why some guys would see feminism as being intruding to their masculinity, but I've never really identified with traditional masculinity.
Yeah, we can tell.
My parents are two psychology majors. Well, I have.
Oh yeah, we can tell that.
Well, no, I mean, he does identify with traditional masculinity. If you define traditional masculinity and traditional femininity as putting men in the role of agent, They therefore responsible for the majority of society, and women in the role of patient, simply acted upon by the actions of men. How is this any different than traditional masculinity, aside from the complete fucking lack of any kind of concrete standard? Like
because the traditional masculinity would expect him to jump in front of a burning building, or into a burning building, to go and actually help somebody, right? That would be what traditional masculinity expects of him, right? Whereas this type of masculinity, this new neo-traditional masculinity of feminism is just, he's just got to amplify the voices of women, right? And he has to, when he hears some man joking about somebody's tits in a freaking, at the urinal in a fucking men's washroom, right? He has to stand up and defend the honor of that woman and her tits, right? You know, that's what it is.
Okay, all right, pause here for a second. So essentially what feminism is basically rebranding masculinity for a group of men who, like I said, will never have to do, or very unlikely will have to have a concrete expression of the idea of protection and providing. So they're basically protecting and providing for women, but now in just a social sphere, where women obviously need more protection and provision than men. But regardless, putting that aside, so the people who engaged in toxic masculinity, the men in the beginning, working class, black men, probably he also talked to Hispanic men, so minorities and working class men, they were engaging in what he terms toxic masculinity because they don't agree, because their lives, the way that they express providership and provision for women, requires a great deal of personal and physical sacrifice. They go to very difficult jobs. They have the expectation of probably pulling people out of fires. These are these men. They have a very physical form of expressing providership and protection of women. But these men, being the intellectual elites, need a completely different way and totally revolutionary way of expressing providership and protection of women. And thus enters HeForShe. And then they feel down, they look down on the men who have to express their protection and providership of women in a very concrete way. Because why? Why do you look down on them? Because they're making real sacrifices?
Because they're peasants.
Because they're peasants, because you want to feel superior to them. And when these guys are making real physical sacrifices, they generally are more physical. So they do things, they remain respectful of women because our society really embraces that value, but they may have a pinup calendar to motivate them to do their shit. Oh my fucking God. Put up a pinup girl on the nose cone of your plane to motivate that kind of sacrifice. That kind of physical sacrifice, that kind of droning, endless work of that men did in the World War II or World War I. That's what they did to represent why they're sacrificing. And you look at that and you say that's objectification. This is just a fucked up class warfare. And it has nothing to do with fucking gender roles or questioning gender roles, because you still see yourselves as men as being the powerful ones who are protecting and providing for women in the social sphere by taking the slings and arrows of outrageous comment or whatever, outrageous fortune or commentary. Well, I've completely fucked that up. Whatever.
Outrageous tweets.
Outrageous tweets. You're going to protect women from outrageous tweets. A young fair lady, I shall do battle over Facebook comments. This is exactly the same fucking thing.
Arthur Chu is the epitome of that, isn't he? And Will Wheaton, right? The epitome.
How can they not see that this is the same thing?
When he fails, when Will Wheaton, as the white knight, right, whose entire life is nothing but service to the women, right? When he fails and expresses an opinion or a need or a feeling of his own, right? He is made to atone for it, right? And anybody, I can dig up the blog post on medium.com. He actually said, all of this hashtag Bernie Bros stuff, where you just, it just is like this whole idea that, men who support Bernie Sanders, they're just misogynists who hate women and hate Hillary because she's a woman, right? It kind of, could we not do that? Because it kind of, as a Sanders supporter, it kind of hurts my feelings, right? It kind of makes me feel like I'm being lumped in with a bunch of misogynists, right? And he ended up having to write this big, long blog post to apologize for suggesting that he had feelings that could be hurt and that he felt like, a certain hashtag was lumping him in with people that he thought of as misogynists, right? And that the whole Bernie Bros thing. And I'm thinking to myself, why don't we do a Twitter search on all of the female Twitter users who have called Hillary a cunt? Because there's a lot of them. There's a lot, and I've never called Hillary a cunt on Twitter, but I've called her a cunt a lot, right? I don't support Bernie Sanders, but there's plenty of reason to think Hillary Clinton's a cunt other than the fact that she has one.
Oh yeah, I'm not exactly sure where that tangent was going. I apologize.
It's just like, it's essentially these men, right? They are going to be just as shamed, right, for failing to stand up to that guy who made that comment about the bridesmaid's tits in the washroom at the wedding, right? He failed to stand up and say that's sexist and it's demeaning and it's objectifying of women, right? And I think that it's really improper for you to bring that up in a men's washroom surrounded by men in a place where you feel safe to speak as a man, right? I don't think that's okay. Right? They're going to be just as shamed, right, as Will Wheaton was for failing that oath of service to femalehood, right?
Yeah.
As the man who loses his job or who doesn't freaking defend his woman's honor when she plays a game of let's you and him fight at the bar, right, on the bad side of town. Right? And all of those things, right? Yeah, they're going to be just as shamed for failing in their masculinity.
And then the other thing is that what I notice is these guys are just as interested in playing the game of competition with other men.
Mm-hmm.
And because that's exactly what this entire thing is. It's a game of competition. They showed the guys who, the black men and the working class men, those heathens. But these guys are far superior to them in their masculinity because they sacrifice for women in social ways, whereas those guys sacrifice for women in physical ways.
I don't think that these guys think that those guys sacrifice for women at all. I think that these guys think that those guys, their form of masculinity is designed to harm women, not protect and provide for them.
What a radical thought.
I know. It's like just the most amazing thing.
Yeah,
right?
that group of men over there, those are the bad men. We're the good men. Nobody's ever figured that one out.
Yeah.
But it's just like those guys to be fair, the guys who are more masculine, who probably are called upon to give more of a physical sacrifice for the women in their lives, and result in the expectation of giving a physical sacrifice. That expectation results in a certain psychological mindset that you assume about self-sacrificing, starting with your emotions. And it also presumes requiring more of a motivation. So you get the sexual motivation with the so-called objectification or just enjoying physically beautiful women. And then you also get the motivation of saying, women can't do this kind of work, which is another way of saying women are weaker than myself. Therefore, I have to step into the breach and do for them. That's what's required when you're expecting a man to sacrifice himself physically. Those are the kind of stopgaps he needs to be able to do that. And you're looking down on the simple fact that these guys are absolutely identical to you, sir. BuzzFeed feminists. They are absolutely identical to you. Absolutely.
Well, in terms of like their propensity towards intersexual competition.
Yeah, intersexual competition and also sacrifice for women, or seeing themselves in terms of sacrificing for women. They see themselves, their value, in terms of attracting and sacrificing and benefiting women, just like you. Except in their case, because their sacrifice has to be on a physical level, because they're working class or minorities, which tends to be more working class, they have to engage in additional psychological coping mechanisms that include motivation via sexual females, like the beauty of women, and also motivation via seeing women as being weaker. Therefore, they have the responsibility to provide and protect for them. You are in a position where your sacrifice isn't as physical because you are intelligentsia. So you have just developed a way of seeing yourself in terms of sacrifice related to women, but not physical, just social.
You're not sparing her from physical danger. You're shielding her from mean comments on the Twitter, right?
Yeah,
Twitter.
That you've created this entire edifice of exactly the same attitude, except I think the guys who are working class and minority probably have less of an obnoxious attitude about it.
Yeah,
I don't think they're posturing as much over it. They aren't engaging in swaggering cockfighting contests over it like you are. Oh, let's go amongst the heathens and let's show them our gigantic cod pieces.
Yeah, well, and when they're called on to actually defend a woman or protect a woman or provide for a woman, it requires something actually like really, really difficult often, right? Whereas these guys, they're just like, oh, I'll write a piece on Vox.com about harassment of women on Twitter.
This is how they engage in their form of intrasexual competition with men. And this is this is it. This is this fucking video in a nutshell. It's these guys who've created their way of being masculine, of revoking their own vulnerabilities in order to serve and protect the women's, posturing over it with another group of men. Look at the size of my codpiece, laddies. You can't afford such a large and pendulous codpiece, can you? Because you are peasants.
Well, I find it interesting that it used to be that the aristocracy would be required just as much. Maybe it would be more ritualized, so it wouldn't be like a brawl in a bar that just erupted at the spur of the moment, but it would be pistols at dawn or something like that, right? But they were still required to actually put something physical on the line, right, in order to preserve their masculinity in light of some slight to the honor of their woman, right? These guys, they're just like, I'll just write some post on Vice, right, and that'll be that, right? I don't have to do anything else to preserve my masculinity in the eyes of these other men. I am the white knight, right? Even though no arrow will ever hit me, no sword will ever touch me, no fist will ever near me, no nothing. I won't have to grunt or sweat or anything, right? I will never have a broken bone over this, right? Like I will never, ever, ever have to get stitches, right? None of that stuff, right? And these assholes are looking at these other guys, right, who may well suffer all of those things. Maybe not in a brawl in a bar, right, but at work, right? At work, they may end up with stitches or a broken bone or a crushed leg or whatever in the service of their women, right? And they're sneering at those guys, right? Because those guys, they're just uneducated and they're unsophisticated and they're like, yeah. And we're better than that, right? Because
and it's it's not even. I don't know how much we can extricate the idea that men, as they are, want a way of feeling strong for women. I don't know if that's ever going to end. But Jesus fuck, can we at least end this disgusting intersexual displays like this? These guys, these fucking Neanderthals. And it's so funny because they're Neanderthals in like brocaded waistcoats, posturing and saying, "Oh, look at those Neanderthals," and the people they're posturing over are just guys trying to get through their fucking lives. And they're not posturing. Like the working class guys are less prone to this kind of shitty posturing than these guys.
They don't have the luxury. They don't have the luxury.
Well, they don't have the luxury. They have to work with other men, so they can't engage in this kind of backbiting. And so that it's like these guys are just Neanderthals in brocaded waistcoats, posturing over their fucking whatever. You're just the same. Get over it. Move on.
No, they're not the same. They're worse because they're
worse. Sorry, they're worse.
They're punching down. They're punching down.
Yeah, they're punching down at those minority and working class men. These guys are punching down, man. Fucking what the? You said twat. Why don't you set aside the fucking elaborately brocaded cod piece and actually question, like, and that's the funny thing is that they say, oh no, we are questioning. No, you're not questioning gender roles. You're not doing any of the kind of painful, difficult, and hard analysis that you can actually respect because it's an aspect of philosophy.
Well, what I think is hilarious is that these guys will almost certainly essentially say that these masculine gender roles are primarily enforced by the patriarchy and by, other men, and it's the football coach and the, your dad and your buddies and all of that. And yes, all of those people do actually enforce or try to enforce certain masculine roles on the men that they care about, right? But the primary people, and I would invite people to watch Brene Brown's TED Talk on shame, right? The people that men are most vulnerable to when it comes to the policing of their masculinity are the women that they care about, their wives, their daughters, their mothers. Those are the people, right? Above and beyond their dad, above and beyond their football coach. Yes, they want those men to be proud of them, but, right, when it comes to fearing someone's disappointment, fearing someone's shame in you, fearing someone believing you failed them, it almost always comes down to the women in these men's lives, right? It is that withholding of acceptance, right? It's that withholding of acceptance that causes men to essentially see being vulnerable as something that they can't do, performing as something that they must do, right? So women need to, if men are going to actually be free and not be these fucking sanctimonious shadows of men, right? That's all they are. It's the guy in the beanie at the start looking in a mirror, and this is the guy looking back. It's just all smudged, right? But it's the same fucking thing. It's the exact same fucking thing, right? Is my masculinity must serve women, the women in my life, right?
Yeah. And it's and requiring, but what's really sinister about all of this is in having the expectation that you serve women or women as a man, you actually have to either create or compel women to create vulnerabilities for you to serve. And that's getting a little creepy. It's like it's like when I talk to a guy who's sort of deep in this kind of attitude, and I point out all the ways, like according to recent statistics, it really looks like men are not subject to less sexual assault. And I'm talking about community. Yep. And you get no services and nobody will listen to you. I saw, like, I was talking to a guy like this and I saw just like the cold dread. And he's like, but women have it worse. They need that. They need it because it's their identity. They need something to serve as men. And they also need to be able to push away their own vulnerabilities. These guys have the same kind of, and it's the same kind of thing that they point out in these guys, the original, the men, the minority and working class men that they talked to in the beginning. They say, oh, these guys have toxic masculinity, but it's exactly the same thing that you have. You have the need to abdicate.
Do you honestly think that the guy in the beanie would what would he say if his girlfriend came up to him and she's all crying and distraught and traumatized and he's like, what's wrong, baby? and she said, somebody said something mean to me on Twitter. What do you think his reaction would be?
He'd probably laugh.
Yeah.
You know, but this is just the, it's like, these are, aside from the sanctimonious, supercilious posturing bullshit, which I'm sure that the working class and minority men posture over, this intelligentsia men bullshit. But aside from that, it's like, this is the same. This is abdicating your vulnerabilities.
Well, but okay, but here's the thing. What I'm getting at is that working class people tend to create tough men and tough women, right? Men and women who, who can hold their own, right? They just do, right? Because you have to, because that's the way it is for working class people. Even more so in developing countries, tend to create tough men, tough women, right? When you have an elite class of people where the men somehow they are, I don't know, they object to being toughened up, right? They can't hack it. They just can't measure up, right? To being toughened up. Well, they require that their women be less tough than them.
Yeah, that's true.
It's required. So this whole thing with cultivating, this culture of, masculinity, it can be weak, it can be fragile, it can be vulnerable, it can be this, it can be like girly, it can be all of these things, it can be useless, right?
But it can't be blameless.
Yeah, it can't be blameless, but it can be all of these, there's no standards, right, for what is a man, right? Now, as far as strength, right, as far as being strong, being capable, being competent, and getting shit done, right? If these men want to remain, if they want to continue to feel like men, right, then as weak as they are, right, their women have to be weaker than them. Their women have to be the ones who wilt when somebody says something mean to them on Twitter.
And then we question why that particular group of women doesn't do anything. They accomplish nothing. But
yeah.
Banana.
Okay.
3 sisters I love. I have an amazing mother. I'm in a great relationship with a wonderful woman. And besides that, like, it's just no shit. It's just...
Okay, but I noticed you didn't talk about how feminism helps your father.
And I also think I'm astounded that you think that the poor, the working class and minority men wouldn't say the same damn thing.
Yeah, they wouldn't care about their mother and their sisters, and
that's really racist and classist.
It's
seriously, we're like, what are we? What is this? A meeting of the Aryan youth?
It's classist. I don't necessarily think it's racist or intentionally racist that they included all those black people. It's just those black people were of a certain class, right? And so was the redneck, and the other guy looked like a tourist, just from judging from his Australian accent. I think it was also Australian, and so he had reason to be walking down the street in the middle of the day, right? In that neighborhood.
It might have been a weekend.
Maybe. I didn't see a whole lot of people out on the street, and the people who were out on the street seemed like the type of people who would be working class but maybe unemployed. So, yeah.
All right.
I mean, I keep saying that, but no, honestly, like, it should be such a non-issue.
My grandmother passed away and my mother passed away. They were such a huge example, not just to lead as a woman, but like as a person, as, being compassionate and being understanding and being a listener.
Feminism allows men to admit weakness and
no, it doesn't.
What? Oh, Jesus. Really? Because
no,
I find it...
Feminism allows men to admit that masculinity is bad.
It allows men to admit weakness. Okay, so what are the laws that discriminate against you? Are you also subject to... should we care equally about male victims of sexual assault and violence and domestic violence? Like, you admit weakness. No, you don't. You hide behind, oh no, but everything is men's fault, so it really isn't a weakness because we're doing it to ourselves.
Yeah, and honestly, you look at the look at that Warren Farrell protest, right? And when everybody was when you actually look at the protesters at the University of Toronto at the Warren Farrell protest, and you look at how rabid the women were and how quiet the men were. I mean, like, sometimes when there was like a whole group of people, they'd be yelling and shouting, but there were no men who went up to a cop and started yelling, or got up in one of the attendees' faces and started really yelling. They were there as the muscle, the backup, right? And they knew, those men knew that they did not have the leeway, right, that the women did to assault people, to assault police, right? They knew. They absolutely knew, right? Why? Because the women are weak. So who'd be scared of them?
Right.
Security and sort of like give ourselves some slack off of this totally unrealistic standard of masculinity that we've been presenting.
Wait. Unrealistic standard of masculinity. Oh, look, here we see the mastermind of all this shit. Okay, but anyway, he's just, it looks like she's in glee. She's like, oh yeah, my young charges believe everything that I'm saying at this moment. All right, but anyway, the what I was going to say is unrealistic standard of masculinity. Seriously, it almost seems like it would be better to tell boys to stick their hands in a pile of fire ants and then just be fucking done with it, than the feminist standard of masculinity, of constantly undermining your relationships with other men, being suspicious of other men, calling other men out, trying to attain a standard of perfection in which you don't even feel sexual feelings towards women, because that could be objectification, and maintaining all of this constant drumbeat of implicating yourself and other men. And it's like they're mentally, and in some ways we process these kinds of shame, this kind of shame and guilt, in the same way that we process pain. Shame, guilt, and loneliness in the same way that we process pain. So essentially, he's saying, I don't have to live up to as high a standard of masculinity, but feminism requires you as a man to constantly be flagellating yourself.
Yeah.
It's like it never ending. So it's, and I know that you say that these guys are cucks, but you have to give them credit. Because the ones that really believe this sincerely and aren't just buying into it because it hides their own malfeasance as sexual predators and shit, they are constantly emotionally flagellating themselves. And if we experience this as physical pain, that means they might as well be taking a cat of nine tails every night and just going, whack, I'm sorry for being male, whack, I'm sorry for being white, whack, I'm sorry for being cis, whack, I'm sorry for having privilege, whack, I'm sorry for a rape culture, whack, I'm sorry for patriarchy, whack, like over and over and over again. Yep. Well, that's gonna require some fucking stamina. Kudos on you guys. I don't think that you are actually failing to live up to a standard. Like, I really do want men to relax their standards of masculinity. And I would say that feminism doesn't relax those standards. It changes them, makes them different. But they're still there.
It gives you a different set of criteria, right? So, it's like you're working in a fucking warehouse lifting boxes. Well, you better fucking stay. The boss is coming. You better look busy, right? Okay. Or you're like, working in, a more avant-garde sphere. Yeah, well, the boss is coming. You better look busy.
Yeah. Well, okay, I want to hear what this woman has to, I want to hear what, what this individual this smarmy woman who apparently loves that younger men flagellate themselves for her pleasure. So let's see what she has to say.
Absolutely can be feminist.
So we just have to watch her nod and grin as they flagellate? Karen, I feel dirty.
Okay. Shh. I want to see this.
And should be.
I am saying that, and it's super surprising when they're not.
It's super surprising when men aren't feminists. Super surprising. Dog, go somewhere else. God damn it. It's super surprising when men aren't feminists.
Okay, I think this is it.
God.
Yeah, I think we're done. It's super surprising when men aren't feminists. Let's just imagine her saying that in like some sort of leather getup with a whip in her hands.
Yeah.
It's super surprising when young men don't flagellate themselves for my pleasures.
Yeah.
How does that guy from Family Guy, how does he talk? With a lisp, you know?
Oh, it's Chris, come back, Chris.
You got nice biceps. Like, seriously, she just strikes me as being creepy. I apologize if she actually is. Well, she's a feminist or something.
The time of my life.
But nobody ever stops.
This way before.
Nobody ever stops and thinks, okay, this woman, maybe she has an unhealthy interest in watching young men flagellate themselves emotionally. Like, nobody ever stops and says, I
don't think anybody's ever stopped and said, maybe she has an unhealthy interest in anything, right? And it's just, like, really, like are women so benign?
Yeah,
are women
well, that's the thing.
Bad intentions that nobody would ever question somebody who's like, join my cult.
Okay, let's imagine the reverse. Let's imagine a sort of meaty, not very attractive older professor grinning like that woman, as young women under his tutelage, flagellate themselves about being feminine or being female. Just emotionally flagellate, and with all of those greasy tones that her voice had.
No, and not flagellating themselves about being mothers and nurturing and but being gold diggers and whores who love the cock, right? And who have like this desire to ride the cock carousel, right? Until they find some big and let's picture it. It's like a red pill professor, right? Who's convinced women to self-flagellate based on like the worst stereotypes of femininity, right? And blame themselves for all of society's problems and woes and all of that, right? Take responsibility for all of it. My gold digging is the reason, and what the reason why I love masculism and my masculist professor, right? My paunchy, middle-aged, balding masculist professor.
Oh, Jesus.
Because he shows me a better way to be a woman.
Oh my God, yeah. And you start to see the kind of the slightly perverted connotations of that particular woman getting to be around a bunch of self-abdicating, and they're objectively reasonably attractive young men. She gets to just, maybe she's schlicking under the table there. Yeah, tell me more.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Tell me more about how glad you are, honey.
Tell me more about rape culture, baby.
Yeah. Tell me more about gold digger culture, hypergamy culture. Tell me more about, how you're the reason why.
Yeah, but let's switch it back to the female professor.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, it's so gross. The whole thing is so fucking gross.
But nobody actually ever questions that. Nobody ever says, they would with a man. They would if it was an older man in front of a bunch of girls or young women, co-eds, saying these kind of humiliating things about their gender. They would immediately go to the perversity of it. But here we have this older woman with this like little harem of attractive young men who are all saying exactly what she wants. I want to see under that table. I will make sure she doesn't have her hand down her pants.
Look at how much shit Hugo Schweitzer got for, he did a blog post. It was the only fucking anything that he wrote that I thought, that actually makes me think, and it doesn't make me want to puke. Because he really was, and he admitted it in his massive freaking, I'm on like multiple antipsychotic drugs right now, committed to a mental hospital, but I have access to Twitter, so I'm gonna like post this like massive confession on Twitter, right, about how I was never qualified to teach women's studies. I had no interest in it. I just had interest in hot young co-eds, and I just wanted to bang as many of them as possible, and teaching women's studies gave me access to them and all of this stuff, right? Okay, so you have, before all of that came to light, right, he wrote a blog post about bukkake, right? About, here's why men want to come on your face, and here's why it's not because they're just horrible people, right? It's because the products of their sexuality, just the very act that you would be willing to, wear that, right, makes them feel like their sexuality isn't disgusting to you, right? That's essentially the point of the blog post, right? The fact that you would let a man come on your face means that you're not repulsed by the products of male sexuality, right? And I was like, oh, well, that kind of sort of makes sense. And everybody fucking flipped, all of these feminists flipped their shit, right? This is a man, they were, like, essentially all he ever did through his entire career, other than that one article, right? All he ever did was use his position to get access to attractive young women, cuckold another man, attempt to murder an ex-girlfriend in a murder-suicide that she didn't agree to, right? And essentially blame men for everything, and talk men out of the idea that they were raped. There was a young man who came to him. He wrote about it. A young man who came to him, right, said, I passed out at a party. I woke up. She was having sex with me. I feel really violated. And he talked that guy. No. What happened to you wasn't rape, because it's just different, right? And even with all of these things, right, that he did, men are to blame. Men are horrible. Masculinity is horrible. Every time I write a blog post about something horrible I did, I blame masculinity, right? It's all masculinity's fault. This is what society has taught me to be as a man, right? Is somebody who preys on women and doesn't take responsibility for my actions and all this, right? It's like he just, when it came down to him actually saying just one benign thing about something guys like, right? A lot of guys want to do the facial thing. And the reason why they want that isn't because they want to demean you or degrade you. It's because they feel degraded and they feel demeaned, and your willingness to wear the fruits of their sexuality on your skin is a clue to them that you are not as disgusted by their sexuality as society has taught them to be, right? And he got vilified, absolutely fucking vilified, right? So you don't even have to be somebody who speaks out in that way, in that creepy way of the red pill professor, right? Who's like, repent your hypergamy, repent your gold diggingness, repent your attraction to the cock carousel, repent all of this, take the blame for everything that's wrong for society, and all of this. And when I tell you to do this and convince you to do this, I'm doing you a favor because it's helping you be liberated from these horrible gender roles. Yeah, no, you wouldn't even need a professor to do that. You just need a Hugo Schweitzer saying, you know, when guys want to come on your face, it might not just be because they're like monsters. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah.
I went
Well,
off on
God forbid that men have vulnerabilities, you know, or have be understood as being human beings. That's just the worst, man.
I know. God forbid, you know, like a man like think of his penis as something that, you know, a woman might like be attracted to or like want to be in contact with and not be revolted by and disgusted by, right? Like, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just God forbid men have those kind of vulnerabilities and want to be accepted by their female partners in these kinds of ways, physically and emotionally.
It's actually like because Robert Downey Jr. just got in some hot water because he did a talk at, I forget where it was, Cambridge or something like that, and somebody in the audience in the Q&A asked him, you know, how big is your penis, right? And he just joked. He just made a joke reply. He says, well, they don't call me the throbbing knob for nothing, right? And, you know, and apparently feminists in the audience were so horrified that they immediately left the scene, you know, sought counseling, and then planned for 7 more freaking showings of the vagina monologues for the spring freaking semester, right?
Well, you know, these guys say feminism allows them to step away from, allows them to have their humanity recognized. And yet when Hugo Schweitzer actually explains something in terms of men's humanity, or anyone really explains something in terms of men's humanity, so men aren't actually seen as these rapacious sociopaths, who are the first people who get up in arms? My God, you allowed a little bit of men's humanity to show through. That's patriarchy, fuckface.
Well, it's not even that you allowed men's humanity to show through, and that's patriarchy. No. What it is how dare you interrupt us in our little freaking enclave of, you know, of discussing how men aren't human, right? Like they don't want to see men's humanity and patriarchy, you know, patriarchy theory, the idea of patriarchy that conceals men's humanity. Of course it does, because men are asked to do inhuman things for very human reasons under patriarchy. It's an inhuman thing to, you know, kill somebody in war, right? For a war that you don't even necessarily care about, but you're required to do it by your government, right? Like, but when they don't want to see men's humanity, and they don't want men's humanity to be acknowledged. And if they're going to acknowledge even just a little tiny bit of it, it still must subordinate itself to women's interests, right? So that homeless guy really should feel bad for that woman who didn't make CEO or partner of her law firm. He really should, because he's got privilege.
All right. They want to see men's humanity and men's vulnerability. But which is more about men's humanity and vulnerability? And I'm going to use your example. Hugo Schweitzer saying that bukkake is about, or ejaculating on a woman, even on her face. And when you see these things, usually the woman looks pretty happy about it. Isn't about degrading a woman. It's about seeing a woman accept every part of you. It's about seeing acceptance. Now that speaks to men's desire for to be accepted. And vulnerability and not being accepted. So that's an expression of both men's humanity and vulnerability. That's looking at an action in terms of men's humanity and vulnerability. And feminists say that's what they want men to express. So which is more about men's vulnerability and humility? Which is more about it? Seeing, well just let me finish. Let me finish, Pin. seeing an act of receiving men's semen and accepting every aspect of a man, is that, and seeing that in terms of a man wanting to be accepted, or seeing it in terms of men sociopathically wanting to degrade women, which is about men's humanity and vulnerability, and which is about this idea of toxic masculinity. Because it seems more like it's not about getting rid of toxic masculinity, but imposing the idea that all of men's feelings and desires and vulnerabilities are a result of really toxic masculinity, rather than men being human and vulnerable.
Agreed.
Recognizing that men want to be accepted, human and vulnerable. Wanting to degrade women, toxic masculinity. Let us impose the toxic masculinity interpretation on something that could be interpreted in terms of men's humanity and vulnerability. And then they turn around and say they want men to be human and vulnerable. But when men are, what do, feminists?
Yeah.
You kick them. You even kick your own. Eugen Schweitzer was a feminist in good standing when everyone walked around him and said, well, let's piss all over him for expressing this in terms of men's vulnerability.
Yeah, no, it wasn't even that, we don't want to see or acknowledge that men are human in this way. We're going to take this way that men are human, and we're going to interpret it as a way that they are subhuman or inhuman. Right? Because, he's saying it's because they're vulnerable, it's because they're human, it's because they long for acceptance from their sexual partners, it's because sex is a deeply personal act of intimacy, and therefore these men who grow up being shamed, right? Being told that their sexuality is harmful to other people, right? And, and if you're willing to actually allow him to do that, you're telling him, right, your sexuality isn't harmful to me. I love your sexuality. I accept your sexuality. I adore your sexuality. I embrace your sexuality, right? And that men have feelings of wanting all of those things from women. And these feminists turned that into men being even more inhuman, right, than normal, right? Like that this isn't a sign of them being human. It's actually just extra evidence that they're subhuman monsters. It's like,
well, they want men to prove. They want men to prove that they're human. And they don't want to actually look at men's vulnerabilities. They don't want to see anything, any action in terms of men's vulnerabilities and desires. They don't want to see any action in terms of men's vulnerabilities and humanity. They want to recast everything in terms of what they call toxic masculinity, even when it doesn't fit. So they are the ones that are perpetuating the notion that men are motivated by toxic masculinity, rather than being human beings, just by their very nature. Like, men are human beings just by their very nature. Feminism seems to think that men need to prove that they're human beings. And this is something that I observe about feminism's actions. As Karen was saying about Eugen Schweitzer, he presents a glimpse into the male soul that is both compassionate and vulnerable and human. And feminists get pissed off at him because he's not attributing it to their theory of toxic masculinity. It's not that men aren't human and vulnerable, or that men don't want to express their humanity and vulnerability. It's because feminists, you want toxic masculinity. You want that.
They need it.
You need it. Okay.
What else would they have to rail against?
All right. Look around. It's all about, you need it because you need a demon. And you can't even, I don't even think you can face it, because if you were able to recognize the humanity and the vulnerability of men, that would necessitate growing the fuck up. Anyway, look around you. I mean, think about all of this, the story of the hero saving the damsel. It's everywhere. It's in these male feminists. This is what they are adhering to. They are a hero, except instead of going after a guy in a bar who's whistled at their girl, they're going after somebody who's done a mean thing on Twitter. But they're still heroes saving the damsel. I mean, it underlies everything. It underlies our entertainment and our propaganda. And the reality is, in feminism, it's there because it makes men feel powerful and women feel valued. It gives us all a warm, fuzzy feeling deep down inside.
Yep.
But here at Honey Badger Radio, what we're trying to sell is recognition of men's vulnerabilities and the necessity of women stepping up to the plate and taking responsibility for that vulnerability. We are trying to sell the exact fucking opposite of what sells nearly everything, from charity to games to clickbait to government programs to this shit. Because it also sells feminism. Go ahead, Karen.
To beer, to barbecue, to like steak, to everything.
Yeah. The only thing that our story has going for it is truth. Because let's be frank, men are not paragons of endless strength, and women are not wells of endless vulnerability. But that truth is ugly. It's painful, and it's a damn hard sell. And this truth is not just a damn hard sell. It's practically unsellable. But there have been plenty of unsellable concepts in history. In fact, I think those unreasonable men who sold the world on unsellable concepts, things like light bulbs, automobiles, hand washing in hospitals.
Yeah, hand washing in hospitals. Yeah.
They were less unreasonable because what they sold were some of the most amazing solutions in history and more damn determined. I think men's rights can sell. I know I can sell it because, like those unreasonable men, I am damn determined to do it. And let's face it, if you're here and listening to this, you are damn determined too. Determined to face down discomfort, determined to disregard pain, determined to face the truth. You know, the truth is ugly, but it's also beautiful and profound and liberating. There is a better way than this. So what are you going to do with that determination? What are you going to stake to make this change happen? Are you going to help us sell men's rights to the world? Oh yeah, you know where to go if you want to.